A lot of NFL news to get to. That's why we get the best to come and educate us. Here next on the show, joining us from ESPN NFL reporter, Mr. Jeff Darlington. Jeff, what's going on, buddy? How you doing?
The best. That's like when you get your dad a shirt that says "World's Best Dad."
I like it. I like it.
Like, do you really mean it? But you know what? Well, I'll take it. I'll run with it.
Well, today, it's all about context. Today, you're the best. You're the best today.
I am the best.
Yeah.
I am the best guest on the Rich Eisen Show at this moment.
Exactly, and that's what you should strive to be, the best you can be in this very moment, because it's very, very fleeting. As we know, just 2 days ago, we didn't know that Aaron Rodgers was going to be the Green Bay Packers quarterback. Well, yeah, I did. I've known this for the whole offseason. But as it transpired, what do you expect from this team? We've heard people talk about, hey, it's a championship roster. This fallout's going to have a big effect on it. Where do you think this Green Bay Packers team goes now that Aaron's back, Randall Cobb fits into the mix, and Ryan Gutekunst is flat out, being honest, say, hey, we signed Randall because it was for Aaron. That's what we're doing now.
To me, the only thing that matters is Aaron Rodgers being back.
Yeah.
Like, I personally don't necessarily believe Randall Cobb will make some incredible impact. I love Randall Cobb. I think he's a good player and provides familiarity with Aaron in this situation. But to me, that's not like, hey, this is the difference between going to the Super Bowl and not.
Right.
To me, simply getting Aaron back, I subscribe to the belief that players are pretty resilient, even when there's a quarterback who doesn't go through this type of drama, even if that quarterback doesn't get along with the whole locker room. And I'm not suggesting that's the way it is with Aaron at all. I'm just saying, in other places, this has happened where there is drama. I always think back, whenever there's drama and we wonder about chemistry of a locker room, I always think back to the night before the Seahawks won the Super Bowl when Percy Harvin, and now I don't want to mess this up, but was it Golden Tate got into a fist fight
right,
literally the night before the Super Bowl? If they can do that and win the game and win the Super Bowl, I kind of subscribe to the belief that maybe a Hall of Fame quarterback can come back into his locker room and perhaps bridge any awkwardness that might exist.
Yeah, I would suspect it would have to be like West Side Story. It would have to be like the Jets and the Sharks in the locker room, completely split down the middle.
Right.
Right. And what one thing that possibly could be a divisive factor this year in the NFL is whether or not your teammates are being vaccinated. We've seen a coach in Ron Rivera speak out about it, and in his defense, right, he's a guy who's living in the real world of having just overcome cancer and is immune deficient, and he's sensitive to that and is disappointed. But we've heard coaches talk about it, where they're at, where they're going, what kind of competitive advantage and disadvantage it could be. Is a vaccinated player, whether they are or not, could this be a divisive factor in a locker room down the stretch, specifically if you start taking away game checks from these players?
I'd imagine that guys will have those conversations early enough to where they can hopefully get through it and get on the same page. And as far as how this impacts the season, probably to a degree that it did last year, but maybe, where, for instance, the teams that were most prepared and most vigilant about dealing with the spread of COVID were ultimately the most successful. And that turned out, by and large, I think to be pretty true. The Bucs are a pretty good example of that. So too are the Chiefs. But I think in general, I subscribe to the belief that this won't be that big of a thing for the NFL eventually. We're still talking about a vaccination rate of above 80% across the league.
That's great.
So it's, as much as I understand the attention that we're placing on it, things are pretty good in the NFL, actually better statistically than the rest of society. And they have a lot more rules in place for those who are unvaccinated to where perhaps it will address some of the potential spread. So personally, I don't think it's going to have as much of an impact as it did last year. And last year they were able to get through a 17-week season.
Yep, exactly. It was pretty special what they were able to do a year ago, because a lot of people Me in particular didn't think that was a possibility. Down in Houston, right? I don't know if you heard the quote, but from Randall Cobb, but he said people were looking at him like he just walked out of prison. So is it that bad in Houston? Is it that bad in Houston that it's like prison for everybody else?
Is there not a great irony in this that Aaron Rodgers, his beef with the organization and his belief that the organization is subpar in the treatment of players ultimately led to the acquisition of Randall Cobb, who now says that he's so glad to be with an organization that does not make him feel imprisoned.
Yes.
There is a twisted irony in all this, and maybe Green Bay isn't so bad after all. I do sense, though, that it is pretty bad in Houston. I mean, if you're looking at they're trading away a lot of top-tier talent, and they're not really left with very much. So it almost feels, honestly, to me, like an expansion club right now in Houston. And I don't know that anybody would really argue against that at this point.
We're speaking with Jeff Darlington, ESPN NFL reporter. The Houston situation, right? The Texans have finally said that they are listening to offers. With all of the allegations that are hanging over the head of Deshaun Watson, is there anything that Houston can get that's going to be a viable option for him? I mean, how does this all play out? He's there, he's at the practice field, he's not being fined. I mean, this just compounds the chaos that exists for the Texans.
I don't get anybody even reporting or suggesting that the Houston Texans could trade Deshaun Watson at this point. Nor do I understand the fan bases, whether it's Philadelphia or Miami, where you have these fans who are like, man, well, I'd love to make a trade for Deshaun Watson. You're trading for a guy with 22 civil lawsuits against him. Even if you just completely don't look at any of the current evidence that has been sort of publicized by those alleging these civil lawsuits and placing them on, even if you just discount all of the evidence that those people have brought forward, it's still, even if he is completely innocent of everything that he is alleged to have done, this is still going to take time. It still is not going to look great along the way. And if you're think about the stock market. If you've got a stock that all of a sudden is controversial, is that the time to sell it, or do you kind of want to wait till things maybe flush out a little bit and see what kind of value you get after the fact? Because right now, to me, Deshaun Watson's trade value is pretty low. So if you're the Houston Texans, why would you sell so low and trade for so little when it really isn't ultimately going to impact your season one way or the other? I don't understand why the Texans would trade for him, nor do I understand why another team would make that deal either.
Yeah, it's difficult for me to understand where that would go. And then just the uncomfortability of him. I mean, I know the head coach talked about how he hasn't been a distraction or everything, but I mean, he's not in the picture, right? He's made it very clear that A, don't want to be here, and B, with all the allegations, makes it pretty unlikely that he's going to be an eligible player, most likely, if the commissioner decides to put him on a list of some sort. So this is Tyrod Taylor's team, maybe leading into ultimately Davis Mills's, the rookie quarterback out of Stanford. But I mean, it just seems so chaotic in the wake of a new head coach and everything moving forward.
Yeah, and I think that players sometimes subscribe to the belief, or the agents of those players, that if we create chaos, then we'll cause the team to just want to get rid of the problem.
Right.
But we just saw it with Aaron Rodgers. Like, Green Bay weathered the storm of the offseason and ultimately now has number 12, a Hall of Fame quarterback, under center for them this season. So I'm not saying that the Texans are weathering the storm to eventually have Watson as their quarterback, but they can certainly weather the distraction to get proper trade compensation for him once we know what his punishment ultimately will be if the NFL decides to levy it. And once we have some better understanding of the actual, by the way, the important 22 civil lawsuits that are currently out there against him.
All right. Less than a week from the first preseason NFL game to be kicked off there in Canton, Ohio, next Thursday night. I just kind of asked this question to anybody I've been talking to who covers the NFL and who's been around it. I mean, we got through a season last year, but it didn't quite feel the same. Mm-hmm. How are you feeling right now? Less than a week away from us to get rolling.
I was super stoked like 3 or 4 weeks ago. And I think I'm excited to just like be back in the mix and on the field and feel the fans. Like that's the stuff that I love the most about the job. I'm obviously probably like a lot of people wondering, are we headed in a direction that's going to cause once again this to be a weird season?
Right.
But man, I hope, because last year was weird. It was so, even for us sports reporters, that I realize fans don't care about us, and nor should they. But like just the energy, all the things that we all love about football just wasn't there.
Yeah.
We watched it on TV, and they did a good job with the crowd noise and all that stuff, but it just wasn't the same. And I just can't wait for it to get back to that.
Well, before we let you go here, my friend Chris Brockman brought to my attention your fishing expertise and this behemoth that you brought into your boat. Tell us about this. 91 pounds. Is that right?
Yeah, I'm not so much the expert. I'm the guy that people call because I'll drink a bunch of beers and have a good time. And I'll certainly cheer everybody on and celebrate when we catch the fish.
You're right.
But yeah, we caught a 91-pound black grouper, which for fishing people, they'll understand that a black grouper is a pretty coveted fish that's awesome to eat, and that's a really big. The Key West Marina where we brought it in to have it weighed, it broke the record by about 41 pounds.
No way.
So yeah, wow. We're talking about a monster. This is Patrick Mahomes.
This is an anomaly, like out of nowhere, just the Phoenix rises.
This is the big boy. This is the guy we were chasing. We were looking for one, and after we do this trip every year for 20 years with my college buddies. We go to the Dry Tortugas, which is 70 miles west of Key West, and we sleep on the hull of the boat for 3 nights. And once in a while, we'll try to go get a black grouper in deeper water. This year we went and. We thought it was either a shark or an amberjack, but the guy we were fishing with was you always got to fight it like it matters. And all of a sudden, that black grouper pops up, and we just went nuts. It was awesome.
Now, I'm a fisherman too, right? I'm a fly fisherman. I grew up in Montana, so I'm a rivers run through it. I'm I give me my 8 to 12 inch
love that.
Cutthroat, and I'm a happy camper. If I'd have reeled in a 91-pound black grouper, I might have put the retirement speech out there.
It's all relative too, though. You can get. I fought a amberjack for the monster amberjack for an hour, and you get it up, and it's a reef donkey, and you're like, oh crap! I just wasted all my energy for that. It's amazing how different species get you more excited than others. It's pretty wild.
Yeah, well, it's cool to follow. Miss seeing you around the office out there in Connecticut.
Yeah, man.
Excited for football to be back. Really glad you could spend some time with us today, keeping us abreast of everything that's going on. Jeff Darlington, everybody,
Thanks,
ESPN
Jeff.
NFL reporter. Thanks again for joining us, bud.
All right, later.
Hey, you watched all the way to the end. Thanks for that. Watch more right here.